Right, okay then. Perfect, yeah. I'm going to get started then. So we're working on a dummy cake. We just might as well practice on, you know, a dummy cake. So it's ideal for you to practice on a dummy cake as well, so you can get the techniques right if you're not too sure how we're going. So I've just covered it very lightly with some Trex on a 6-inch tier, which is 4 inches deep. It so that it's not going to move. With a real cake, it's going to stay in place, but when it's a fake one, it will move when you've done your icing. So I'm just going to move that to the side a bit, and then get my sugar paste out ready to go. So this is just but I use it for my icing sugar, and I always roll out with icing sugar because the sugar paste is made with icing sugar. It will absorb it quite easily. Where if you do it with corn flour, you tend to get a bit more stain in with it. So it's always done with icing sugar. And the brand of paste that I'm using here is Renshaw. It's just Renshaw covering paste. I've used Renshaw for many years and I've never seemed to have any issues with it. Now obviously it's a lot softer than what the other brands that are out there. We do use Saracino as well for the deeper cakes, because obviously the deeper cakes take that little bit longer, and with it being deep, you know, you're covering it, so you're not covering it as quickly as what you normally do, should I say. So we have here, so I'll just get started. Oh gosh, got a bit of fluff on it already. So just keep turning your paste round, give it a few rolls. So that's roughly that size that I want, or just about here. So yeah, you can get these off eBay. They come in sets, I think of about 100. They don't cost much, so just grab a bit of my pen over. So when I roll it, I go forward like this, and I bring it back and I lift it off. This comes in here like so, and then just roll it over. Just make sure there's no air bubbles on here, as you can see here. And then you want to be concentrating on this part of the cake at first. So all you do is just gently using the palm of your hand, not your fingers, because your fingers are going to dent the cake at the same time. And then just turn it round. A lot of people, when I'm demonstrating that Cake International, will say to me, oh, don't you use a turntable? Well, as you can see, this is moving around very easily without the need for a turntable. Now I start working down. And again, you can see I'm not pushing in too much, because the more you push in, the more indents or fingerprints that you're going to have on your cake whilst you're doing this, and it'll be harder to get rid of. So I just trim it. And always trim where you can see. You don't want to be leaning over the cake as in cutting it here, because 9 times out of 10 your boobs, or if you're a man, your chest is going to go into the cake. So just trim round where you can see. Turn the cake round. So you can see that I haven't gone cut in too close to the cake, because there's no need to at the moment. Lightly dust it with a bit of icing sugar, and that's all you need. And then just take your hands around like that, fingers even. Now when you come to use the smoother, which is what I've got here, as many of you I know have already got the smoother, and this is a sharp edge smoother, and it's a lot taller, and it's a lot thicker, robust, compared to some of the other things that are on the market at the moment. We developed this because, like a lot of people, when you use certain things, they were taking a long time for me to get the sharp edges, and I wanted to get the sharp edges quickly, not an hour later like other things that I was using. So we developed this because we just stumbled upon the idea, because it gets sharp edges on your cakes within minutes. Now I'm not going to do it as fast as what I would do it, so that you need to see how I'm working. So you want to make sure when you put a plate on the top that you've got this gap around here, it's at least 3 inches, so that you can move your smoother around the cake with no friction. If you have a larger cake and it's like this, on a small plate like that. Have I got a smaller one somewhere? I'll just lift this up somewhere like so I can just show you. If you have your cake is on a plate like this, 9 times out of 10 when people contact me and they're saying I can't get my edges quite like what you're doing, so I'll ask them to send me some pictures and tell me exactly what they're doing from start to the end. So what I find when they send me a picture, the cake is on a small plate. Therefore you haven't got that movement to space either side so you can take the smoother round without it coming in contact with the bottom plate here. If you do have it on a smaller plate, can you see, instead of it being vertical that is in touch with the cake at times and the same with the plate, you haven't got that when it's on the side here. And not only that, you're going to scratch the base of your tool as well, which interferes with the that gives you friction or interferes when you're using it on a plate. So you'll always make sure that your cake is on a bigger plate. Show you. So I know I've got enough space around this to go on there. We do have the bigger plates as well, so for obviously the bigger cakes. So all you do is you bring your cake to the side of the table, and then you put your hand, I can't obviously show my table because it's a bit out of focus with the camera, or out of reach with the camera. Your hand needs to go directly underneath the cake, and the other hand is placed on top. Now when you do this for the first few times, you are going to be a bit nervous, but don't worry, the more you do it, the easier you'll find it as well. So all you do is flip it over. If you have your hand over here and you flip it over, what will happen is the plate will go like this. So make sure your hands are directly in the middle. Just put that to the side. Then, bit more fluff there. Use your hands and just don't use your fingers. Like I said before, you're going to do indentations onto your cake. Now you can obviously see that there's not many fingerprints or anything here, but what I'm going to do is just put some fingerprints in so you can see. So your hand is gently placed on the cake. Don't put too much pressure on it, because that is where you're going to create that lip at the bottom that you tend to see. So all it is just very gently holding the cake in place. This is stopping the cake from moving over that way, because this hand is putting the pressure in to create those sharp edges. So the smoother is kept in contact with the cake at all times, and you keep it flat on the plate at all times as well. So it's pushing. What you're doing is you're pushing in here, and then you're going to be rocking the smoother this way and then rocking it back that way. Now I've got a little bit of icing sugar on there, which I shouldn't have, so I should have told you that. You need to make sure that the plate is nice and clean, as well as the base of your smoother. Now you can hear that, you can't hear anything now, so it's going to glide around nice and easily. So like I say, my hand is here. We're going to do a top view first of all, then we're going to move the camera to the side so that you can see the sharp edges happening. So like I said, you push in and you rock it backwards and forwards. So you're pushing the icing this way and you're dragging it back. So what you're doing is that curve of the cake, or that shape here that you had on the base of the cake, whilst you're moving the smoother backwards and forwards, the smoother is pushing that paste into that gap. It's got nowhere else to go. So you'll see more icing coming up and icing going into that gap down there. So backwards and forwards, that's all you're doing. You can see I'm keeping the smoother in contact with the cake at all times. So just rock it backwards and forwards, like so. I'm hoping this is the bit where I had the fingerprints on. Yes, it was. Those fingerprints have gone now, and you can see the icing here is in contact with the plate, where it isn't here. So what we're going to do now is to swap the camera action round, or the camera position round, so that we can get it so you can see down here. So now we're going to concentrate on these bits here. And what you need to see, this gap, I'll just turn it around here a little bit. This gap here, if you watch me with the smoother, you'll see that the smoother is going to fill that gap in here. So all I'm doing is pushing backwards and forwards, so keep your eye on that gap. Can you zoom in a little bit, Toby? You should now see forwards with the icing. So there's the gap here that we had, and you can see that the icing has now filled that gap here. So just go backwards and forwards, rocking the smoother, and at the same time you're pushing it into the cake as well. But remember, don't put any pressure down on that cake, because that's when you'll get that bulge. And like I said before, you need to be looking at this in front of you here. There's no good working on this side or that side, because you've got no control unless you were left hand. So as you can see now, we've got that lovely sharp edge here, because the icing is in contact with the plate. You'll know when you've got that sharp edge because you can see the gap here, and you can see how it is in contact with the plate. So, okay, so when we come to trim, you trim from the outside in, and this is making sure that the paste is going to stick to the cake as well, because if you tend to go out this way, you're just undoing all that work that you've just done. So trim from outside in. You can see, I'll get Toby to lift up the camera in a second, and you can see how thick that the paste is. And again, just to make sure it's all tucked in nicely. So what you do now then is you place your small plate back on top, exactly the same as you did when we flipped it underneath, one hand on top, and you just flip it over. Now if you find that the icing has got stuck a little bit to your cake, all you need to do is just lift up the sides gently, like this, and it will come off. And I'll just get yourself one of these makeup brushes, a big fat fluffy one, and just dust it off. And there's your beautiful sharp edge. Here, okay. There's how you ice a cake and you get your sharp edges really quickly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to do the Roost fabric effect. So I'll just flip the cake over, place it on your turntable, and take that bit off. Okay, so while I'm doing a fake cake, I need to put a little bit of weight on the top. Because I'm pressing into the side of the cake here, it's going to move the cake off the plate, so I always tend to put a weight on the top of it. If it's a real cake, you won't have any issues, it's not going to move. So what I'm going to do, so you can hopefully see me. So for the Roost effect, as you can see here, there's a little baby one I did earlier on. Now this is not a cheap one because it's going to snap while you use it. So I think this is from WH Smith or even like the pound shop or something like that. But you can see I've got here, you can see, and there's a little bit of a ridge. So if you grab your ruler, and you're going to be starting from the, which I know it's the top, it's the bottom at the moment. So the reason we do this upside down is just so that I still can keep that kind of the sharp edge, that it's not going to be rounded. If I had working on the other way at the top, as you can see, if you just look here, when I'm pressing the ruler in, it will lift the icing up like so. So I always start at the bottom. So all you do is you just grab the ruler backwards like that. Turntable going around as well. I'll try and do it this way a bit so you can see it. I'm trying to show you at the same time as I do. Is just rock the ruler. Now these lines don't have to be perfectly straight, but take advantage of rocking the ruler backwards and forwards. As you can see, that line, instead of just doing little ones like this, you're going to have quite a big line. I presume so, but you don't want it to be too thick. That's the only thing. You want it to be quite a thinnish one, because otherwise the thick is going to do it. Let's have a look if I've got.
Into your icing too much.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't do. It should be okay. I'm trying to find. Hang on a second. I'm just improvising here. It's a bit of the difference that we have here. So grab your ruler. don't worry if it goes over here a little bit, because we can trim that before we flip the cake back over. Just turn the cake round. Now the beauty of having this effect as a cake, I find, is a lot of the brides tend to want to have the natural buttercream look. I mean, I don't mind doing it, but I prefer to have an iced cake for a wedding, because it's out on show for quite a few many hours, should I say, and sometimes there'll be in a marquee where it's going to be quite hot, so therefore the buttercream is going to dry out so much. So I will have a bride who will come to me and saying, I only want a naked looking cake, I just wanted to have buttercream on it, I don't want it to have icing. And I have a 4-tier one of these in my cabin when I do the wedding consultations, and as soon as that bride walks in, she sees this cake and she says, oh, I really like that, can I have that? So in a way it's working for me, because they see that, and it is a need. As you can see, it's not taking me long to do this. I'm doing it a lot slow, obviously, because I'm talking to you as well, but it doesn't matter if you take your ruler over a pattern. And it's one of my, I think, the favourite kind of natural looking cakes, if you can get on what I mean. So that's it, just backwards and forwards like so. Won't go all the way around. I'm quite happy with that. And also the beauty of doing this is that your icing doesn't have to be perfect. So if you've got any imperfections on it, your ruler's going to get rid of them. So there's that. I'm just going to trim the top. So, and then I'll just move this out of the way. Oh, so hopefully if I get it out of here. So you can see I've still got my nice sharp edge. We've got the rush pattern in here, and it's a very, very simple design for a cake, as you can see. I'm just going to place that on top so you can see, obviously, a different colour. Now that is, that colour is Renshaw, and it's one of the new ones, the Latte. So it's beautiful colour. This is called the Roost Effect. You can find, there's a tutorial on my YouTube channel, so you can find that as well. So some people have another one on top so you can see a dinky one there, or some people will keep it like that and then finish it off with a heart topper, as you can see. I'm just going to see if I can move it up.
Which brand of fondant are you using?
This is Renshaw that I'm using at the moment. Oh, I've just done a dick in there, but I'm just trying to show you.
Yeah.
So some people have a heart topper on it, as you can see here. You can see that's the one from my competition cake. Some fresh flowers on the top of it, as you can see. Like that. Some people have the I'll get that sort of way. Or some people will have some sugar flowers on there. So you can just imagine if we've got something, if I get this at the right angle, like so. Can you see there? So that's just dug in. And all we do when we insert these, we have a sail pick, or I use a straw when I'm using the cakes, and I'll just put some icing in the bottom. And as you can see, they're all attached with some florist tape, and then that will just sit into the cake like so. And I always place these into the cake. When the sugar flowers, these are always placed in the night before, so there's no movement when I'm transporting the cake to the venue. Okay. So that's the first texture, and like I said, if you missed it, we'll post the video onto Facebook so you can see it afterwards. So I'll just get rid of this. Okay, what we're going to do now, this I iced earlier on. This is so I can show you how we've done the... This is iced this morning, so when I come to do any add any, where is it, the magic sparkles or the edible glitter, I always make sure that that cake is, or that tier is done first, get everything else done, So yes, so ice your cake first of all, that you need to have any glitter or anything on it, so it sets a little bit firmer so you can work on it later on. And normally these are done in the morning, and then I'll come to ice it, or put all the sparkles on or the glitter on later on in the afternoon, so it's a bit firmer. So what we'll start off with first, again this is the latte colour, again from Renshaw that I mentioned to you. And what I need to do is just turn this at an angle. I need my tricks as well, sorry. I'll get that off a second here. Now there's a couple of ways that you can apply the gels, the sparkles on natural cake, but this is the way that I always do it. I mean, I appreciate that everybody has their own ways of doing things. So I'm going to put my gloves on so I don't have to quickly wash my hands after the glitter. Oh, you've been using it wrong, have you? So many people say this to me. So you must, when you buy the smoother, you get 2 free tutorials. So make sure you watch the tutorials because it gives you lots of tips on how to use it. And if you get any problems, you can always message me. So when I'm applying the glitters or the magic sparkles to the cake, I rub my cake with a little bit of Trex. Some people do it with steam, with the little steamers you get, or some people will use edible piping gel or glue. But I just prefer doing it this way. So just a light covering. I'm not going to bother too much on the top, but as I've already put it on the top, we'll go with it.
It'd be nice. How do we get the link for the tutorial?
Hopefully Toby will post the link. It's on my website, but hopefully Toby can post it. Put it in the comments. Now sometimes with the real cake you can still do this. Just depends on the weight of the cake. So want to grab yourself a tray. I tend to use the scale pan because of the shape of it, or you can just use a normal tray so you can catch the glitter afterwards. Now I'll just move that away from there. I've got a bit of a grip on there because I need to show you how to do it the other way. Now I do appreciate that when it's a real cake it is going to be a little bit heavier when you're working on it. So my tray is underneath so that I can catch any of the glitter or that's going to fall from after using it. So good things about these edible glitters, white squares are by CK Products. You can get these on the cake decorating company, or I think they do them on cake stuff as well. So they've got a nice little, as you can see, lid here. So you're not going to, it's not all going to come out straight away. So all you need to do for this is, if you have, I'm going to try if I can come in, I have my elbow on the table so that I know my cake is going to be nice and secure. Instead of holding it in the air, you've got too much movement going on. So I have my cake here. And I should think some of these ladies or gentlemen that used to be chefs or who are chefs, this is how we used to decorate the side of the cake as well. So basically all you're doing is taking it, I need to get that open a bit more. Like so. And you can see that these are sticking to the cake, should I say, quite easily. And you can just go up and down. And the reason I've done it on a coloured cake is I just wanted to show you, if it's on a white cake, obviously it's going to be pure white. But can you see the light on that already? You can see straight away that the glitter squares, you know, the light is catching them, so it's quite shiny on there as well. So that's the glitter. Like I say, I'll put all the links or where I purchased these items so you can see afterwards. So when you have any left over in there, all you need to do is scoop it up and put it into this pot afterwards. So that's one way of doing it.
I've been asked, what did you cover the cake with?
Tricks. I'll show you here. Tricks here, or you get, I think is it Crisco over in America and Canada and Australia, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. So the other way is you put your cake onto a turntable that you can have at an angle. It might be, yeah. Let's try it. Oh no, it's going a bit rusty. Right, hopefully that will work if I want. Doesn't normally slide off, but obviously with me being live. That's a bit better. Right, here we go. So what I want to do here, as you can see, I put a little bit of greaseproof on the other side. So if anything that's going to slide off is going to go this way. So if you find that your cake is too heavy, let's try and get the pot the right way. There we go. And then you can always grab a spoon, take it round. If I can show you that way. And then throw them onto there. See there. I'll just put the other glitters because I think we'll put the time. Empty that onto there for me, please. Empty that onto there for me, please.
Put this onto here.
Okay, so that's one. So what we have here now to show you another way. Magic sparkles. I don't know if you have heard of these before, but can you see these little glitter type things here? We covered the cake with Trex to begin with before we put any of the glitter squares on. Is that what you mean, Denise? So they're magic sparkles, as you can see here. You can get these all in different colours, but I tend to use the white one that I have here. So when I come to place them on here, what I tend to do with this, I'll just get this little pot here. Is, I've already crushed these ones. I've crushed them a little bit, but if I show you another type that isn't, so you can probably see. Can you see here on my hand here? You can see that they're flakes. So what we do is I put them into my palm and then I'll just use my fingers and I'll just crush them a little bit more. Same thing again. Get the cake off. Try not to dent it and that. And then at an angle, so we turn it round. And then just these little tubs you can get in the shop, they're like desserts and what have you. I always find them quite handy for when I'm applying something like this. So you can see there's the edible glitter, which has got quite a shiny, the glitter squares here, and you can see the magic sparkles. They're kind of a tiny version, whereas if you want quite a blingy look, you could go for this one, or quite a subtle look, you got this. And again, when I'm doing different lighter coloured cakes, I only use the white ones. If I want to do the rose gold, hopefully it's going to show up on here. Just put that. Can you just open that for me, please? Now with rose gold, and it's got a mixture of the squares in there as well, so we have to. Can you see the colour here? I've not yet found a nice rose gold colour flakes for when I come to use the cakes. So what I do is I use, you can see the squares, it's a light rose gold. So in my pot, I'll just pour these white ones in here so you can see, and a little bit more white ones.
How many tubs do you think you need to cover an 8x5 cake?
You'll only need the edible glitter squares, you won't even use one for it. Probably the magic sparkles, you'll probably need about 2. So there's my white ones in here, you can see. Need a little bit of a brush, and then I grab my Squire's rose gold in here. It'll work with any colour. I just want to see if you can see it in there, look. And all I'll do is give it a good shake about, like so. I've literally shook it everywhere. And now you can see rose gold edible glitter. And that again, if I'm going to put it onto a cake, I would make sure that my cake is a very light pinky colour so that it's going to stand out a little bit more. I'll try and do that on here so you can see. And there you have your rose gold magic sparkles. So that's what I use. I use the magic sparkles, add a little bit of the Squire's light rose gold on there. The actual rose gold is a little bit more coppery colour for me. So any leftovers that you have, let me put this back on here. Just pour, I keep these little tubs, I mean this is an old one, but it's a purple cupcakes one, you know, the little druggies you can get, or pearls you can get. I keep these, and all I do is I just pour it back into a container with a lid on it, and then it's there for me to use again. So therefore it's not going to go to waste. So there's those two, and the last one I'm going to show you is, and this I've used on quite a few of my competition cakes. This is just caster sugar, which caster sugar, I don't know what it's called in other countries, but it's not icing sugar, it's the next one up from icing sugar, so it's very fine. You can probably see, I can show you the granules, can you just see it just a little bit there? So what I've done with here, with caster sugar, I've mixed in a little bit of, you can either use pearl white, let's see if you can see it without the light bouncing off it, or you can get a snowflake one. The snowflake kind of gives it a nice twinkle look to it as well.
Someone's asking you to apply the glitter with a brush.
You can't, oh no, you can't apply the glitter with a brush because it's going to stick everywhere. The best thing to do is use a spoon or use the pot when you use it. So that's why I say keep loads. If you have any of these little pots, just keep them because they're ideal for applying your glitters to your cakes and what have you, and for storing them if you've got any left over as well. So we just grab the cake again. So same thing as what I did before. I have my pot, or you can use a spoon if you want to. And all you do is have your cake at an angle again. Make sure you've got your tray underneath it to catch any that's left over. And that's giving it a very fine glittery look. Can you see? It's kind of like a shimmer to it because we've got the shimmer in the icing sugar. That's in the caster sugar. That's what it's doing. It's not showing as much as white as it. Okay, see there. So that's the caster sugar with the luster put into it. I mean, try and experience. When we've done a purple cake, we added a little bit of purple powder into the caster sugar, and that came up like purple glitter. Now there's the rose gold one. There you have the white magic sparkles, and there you have the CK edible glitter squares. So it can give you some different looks on your cake. So have a play around and you can see what comes up. Okay. Right. This is one that I pre-iced about 10 minutes before we started, so I'm hoping that it's not going to be too dry to work on. So we're going to be doing...
Shan's watching.
Hi Shan! My sister's watching.
Paul is asking, when you apply the caster sugar to the glue, does the caster sugar dissolve at all?
No, because if you do it onto this, when you steam a cake, or if you do it onto glue, you're going to have a bit more shiny look. That's why I always tend to use the Trex. And I only do a light covering with the Trex as well. If you're going to put glue on, or some people think, well, why are you putting Trex on because it's quite fat? And thinking, well, actually, all that fat you've got on your cream and your butter and your buttercream and your icing anyway, just that tiny bit more is not going to make a difference at all. Right, so we're going to be doing the bashed metal look and a few other techniques as well, so I can show you. So this is one that I did yesterday. So it's nice and hard for me to, when we come to do the painting, which I will show you after this as well. But you can always do this again, like if you're going to do any texture to it, do it straight away when you've done your cake, and then leave it to the side so that you can paint it afterwards. Because if you paint it straight away, you're going to undo all textures that you can see where you've embossed it a bit and that. Okay, So again, when I do these, this is a separator here. You can see that I've got a drum on here. I've run out of other drums, so this one hasn't got a drum on it, but you can get the idea of what I'm saying here. So when we do this, again, this is done upside down so that I can still keep that lovely sharp edge. Flip the cake over. Grab your ball tool. So a bit of noise in the background here. And that one there. What you want to be doing is just hold the cake very lightly in place and push in with the ball tool. Now when you come to do these ones where you've got to do the textures like this, the icing or the sugar paste needs to be just that little bit thicker than what it normally be, because otherwise you're not going to see the texture as much. The turntable, I think it's a Peer Me one in the background. Yeah. I've had it for years, and I think this one might be Peer Me as well. So what you do is, like I say, hold the cake in place, use your ball tool. Now this is a Pebble Cupcakes one. It's a metal one. I prefer using these to the plastic ones, but you can still use the plastic one as well. I think this is a Peer Me one as well. So all you do is you push into the cake, creating little dimples. And it doesn't have to be uniformed. Just go all over the place, like so. So when you have little areas like this that you haven't used, all you need to do is just push it in a little bit. Try different angles as well. So this must be done as soon as you've iced your cake. And I know that I said I prepared this a bit earlier on, but I didn't want to keep icing my cakes while I was doing the live for you. Around like so. And then just use the other end just to push it in a little bit more, so it doesn't look too flat around the top here. I'm hoping that's going to look. So this is what I call the bashed metal look. Okay. So that's the with the ball tool. Another technique that I use on one of my competitions, I've used that one and I used the big spoon as well. It's just to give you an idea. I'm trying to get rid of all the rose gold in it. So again, all you do, and you can see it's quite a deep spoon. You can use a teaspoon as well if you wanted to, but you can see that's not, well, get the right angle, not too deep. So just push it in, turn in the spoon. Different angles, it just gives it a softer look, like that. Okay, I will turn that over in a minute so you can see. Next is the, to get a snow effect on the cake, grab yourself a scrubbing brush. Sorry, it's quite in your face then, wasn't it? Quite up to the screen. I use a plastic one because I can sterilise this quite easily, or it can go into the dishwasher as well. Whereas a wooden one, there's more cross-contamination with it. You can't clean it as good, or the bristles tend to come out. We use this a lot when we're doing snow, grass, sand, just to give it another bit of texture look. So all you do with this, I'm going to see if I can turn it around just a little bit so it's not right in your face. Sorry, a bit of wobble going on there. Is again, your hand is just placed on the cake, and all you do, I'll turn it around this way, is you're pushing in, like so. Again, don't worry about the icing coming above. This is why it's done upside down, because it's easier to trim this way. Push it in. Can you see that snow effect? Sometimes I'll leave it plain, sometimes I'll paint over it. So I do half and half in a minute when we get to paint it. So that's what we call the snow kind of, or the grass texture, what you would do on a cake. But for wedding cake, because we want it to have look like snow. Another thing I have here is one of my favourite moulds. I don't know if any of you know this lady, but Rachel from the old piping bag has some brilliant or fantastic moulds, should I say. This one I use a lot for the separators when we're doing on the cake. You can see how floppy and bendy that they are, which is brilliant when we come to do work. So like I say, it's Rachel from the old piping bag. Now I think this is the stone and pebble one. I think I got told off last time because I didn't say it correctly, but I will make sure I put everything in the notes when I'm finished. So all you do with this, I'm trying to do it this way so you can see what I'm doing. You must make sure that the mould is flat on your plate. If you lift it up, you're going to have a little bit of a line coming through. You want to keep the pattern that's on the other side of the mould, like so. So all you do, I'll try and do it this way so you can see, is push it in like that with the mould, or the mat should I say. You don't necessarily have to keep it this way. You can take it round, pushing it like that. And if you find that you've got a gap here or that hasn't got anything on, just bend your mould, because you can see how bendy it is. Mat should I say, and just push it in to get rid of it. Obviously the harder you push in, the more of impression that you'll get. So you can see here the impression that's done from there. So that was really quickly. So there's that one. So all I need to do here then is I'll just trim these quickly. And that bit's gone. It's the same as when we just ice our cake. Go from the outside to the in. Plate on top. And just flip it over. And you'll see that I've still got that lovely square sharp edge on there. It's not rounded too much. So what we'll do here, so that you can see it all painted up. So this is one that I've just diced. Like I said before, you need to put that cake to the side so that it firms up a little bit more. And then just grab some colours. Tray here. So I have my tray here. This is you can get from, I think, Hobbycraft, or even, oops, sorry, The Range. Brilliant for keeping all your dust colours in, so you don't have to keep throwing them away afterwards. And I've got lots of brushes here. I've got a couple of ones that I need for painting and what have you. And I have some fatter ones here that you can get from the Poundland. They're just like makeup brushes. I mean, they are cheap as chips. Probably about £1 to £2, something like that. But it doesn't matter if, you know, they go to, they ruin a bit, because you can go and get another, replace another quite easy. You want to keep an eye on them so that you don't see any of the bristles, the hair bits coming out. Because as soon as that comes out, you'll notice that on the cake when you're buffing with your lustre on that. So I have that bottle over there, please, Toby. And that. So we have the light rose gold here, as you can see, and we have the flash silver from Faye Cahill. I have a lot of her colours. They're quite bright, and they have that lovely lustre look too as well. So these are the main colours that we're going to be using now. So and I'm using dipping solution here. Some people use vodka. Why waste vodka on cake? So we're going to use the rose gold in here and the silver. I might need to put a little bit more in there, sorry. Just so you can see some different looks here. Okay, so I do tend to make my colour quite thick when I'm adding it onto the cake, so that I don't have to keep going over and over it again. Can you see that okay, can you? So grab one of your brushes and then just buff like mad. If you go backwards and forwards like this, you're going to get streaks on it. So that's why I always go round.
Quite a few questions to address, man.
Okay, we'll fire the questions at me in a second. So you can see that there. I'll bring that a bit closer to you. See that lovely shine to that? So that's why we call it bashed metal, because it obviously when you put the colour on it, it will come out like bashed metal.
So when you've got a slight gap between two separate tiers, what do you generally use to fill the gaps? Is it royal icing still?
I don't tend to have a gap, because while it's upside down, I have that sharp edge here, but at the bottom, I make sure when I'm icing the cake that when I trim it, it's quite flat, and when I turn it over, if there is a gap, a tiny gap, I just get my smoother. I just take my smoother round the side. Where's my smoother? All I do is I take my smoother backwards and forwards round like this, therefore making sure that's nice and flat there. I mean, not all cakes have ribbon on it. Some people, you can hide it with a bit of ribbon. What was that in the bottle, please? It was vodka! No, it wasn't. It's dipping solution. Oh, that's probably come back to me. I'll make sure I put these on the notes afterwards, see where I've got bits and bobs from.
Coalpit.
Oh, that's from Coalpit, yes. But you can get, I think Squires do their own dipping solution. And I do believe Cake Stuff do their own as well. I think it's called, oh, it's a longer word for it. I can't think what it's called now. But dipping solutions, same thing. So
Should you dust straight onto the cake, or do you have to mix it into a solution?
you can dust it onto a cake straight away, but it doesn't give the same effect as what it does when you do the dipping solution or the alcohol to it. You must use white alcohol, or clear alcohol, should I say, not white alcohol, clear, so that you can get that luster look. I mean, I'll see if I can show you on another way. If I just, hang on, I can't. I just dust it on the top. I'm just using another colour so you can see it, me dusting on the top here. It's kind of very soft looking thing. I do tend to do this when there's one little bit of colour on the bottom of the cake. Can you see it there? It's not the same effect as what that, obviously that's, I know the two different colours, but you can see I've not added any dipping solution to that, so it's just kind of soft version that you look into it.
And you just use that tray so you can mix colours together?
Yeah, I do. Well, when I'm doing a bigger cake, when there's lots more luster that to it, I just have some bowls. I think I got from IKEA, so I just get the bowls. I think they're about 4 or 6 in a set, and just use them when I'm doing a bigger cake. But obviously, I tend to keep these in here a little bit because I'm only showing you what to use here. So we've done the silver one. We want to do the copper one now, so you can see that's all rose gold. This is my favourite because it always looks lovely, and I think we need to add a little bit more to that. Again, like I say, I'll put it on quite thick because I don't want to have to keep going over it and buffering it each layer. I nearly made a mistake then. So make sure you get a different colour brush for the ones that you've been using on here. And then just go round. And buff it like so. And if you wanted to go make it a bit deeper, just put on another layer. Not too much there, look. Like so. And just go around. You can really see that coming out now.
What colour is that, Mel?
That is the Squires Light Rose Silver. It's light rose gold. They have got the silver rose gold as well. Yeah, silver rose gold. But I do tend to use both of them because they're kind of like coppery looking, but not too deep as a copper. But you can see the difference in here. Look how that looks there. So that really does show off the bashed metal look. So if I go around this side here, just colour these in a little bit for you so you can see. Now this is Rachel's mould, this stone and gravel. Dust that up like that. And you can see how that looks. Like so. And I'm not going to do the snow effect because I tend to keep that one like that. But that's showing the different dusts that I use and the different textures that you can see as soon as you paint them, how they look afterwards. Okay, so I'll just get rid of this and we do the last technique. So this is the folded fabric.
What do you use to clean brushes?
I use some soap and water. Just make sure there's lots of soap when I come to it. I put, no, not soap, washing up liquid. I put it into my hand like this and then I buff it round like that. And when it becomes clear, you know that your brush is nice and clean. And I just lightly use a cloth to take most of the moisture out, and I just leave it to dry by itself. So this is what we call the folded fabric. This is an old tier from a cake I had in October, but I use it purely for when I'm teaching, that's so people can see it. So as you can see, I've done it all the way around. I know it's got a little bit of a mess here, but I'll show you how to cover that afterwards. So when I do any ruffles at all, I always use Saracino. You can just pass me that tub, please, Toby. Because I find it doesn't dry out, it gives me a bit more time. I know this is the skin colour, but I always use the Saracino for when I do my ruffles. So what I've done here, just rub my glue as well. Sorry, get my glue ready. This is the pre-iced here, as you can see again, that I did earlier, and as a board underneath as well. You just apply a little bit of glue or water. I'm not going to go all the way around because I appreciate that we've been on quite some time. I don't want to bore you. Like so. Now you can probably see here that I have some strips that what I did is I took it through the pasta machine, so I got it quite fine, and this was rolled out at about 6:30. So when I do ruffles, I try to have as much of this rolled out ready for me to go so that I can apply the ruffles quite quickly. And as you can see, I've just covered it a bit with cling film, and you can see that it is, you know, it's still got movement in it. It's not too dry, so there's no issues with that. And like I said, I've just covered it with cling film, or you can cover it while I'm doing any flowers or anything. Just you can get these A4 plastic sheets that you can do it with as well. Put those to the side. So I need to just grab my knife. So if you just take a quick measurement off here, so that I know how deep I want them to be, so I can cut it about there. It's a bit cack-handed, haven't I? With my straight line like so, like that. So grab your palette knife. You can use a small one or you can use the bigger one. I'm hoping that you can, I might have to change this at another angle so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so what you need to do is to create your folds when you're doing it. So all I do is I push this, hold my palette knife up a bit, just fold it over like that. Don't press down on anything at the moment. So then you need to keep this here, and the rest of it you'll bring into that first fold that you've done. So take your palette knife underneath, and what you need to do is again lift it up. And can you see what I'm doing? I'm bringing the spare bit to the fold. Again. So some you can have quite close, and you don't necessarily have to keep going one way around the other way. You can do a couple the same way, and then go this way, like so, over like that. So I'll just trim this bit here. Now you don't want to be trimming this too close to that fold, because you'll see in just a second. So just grab your a little bit of glue. So what I need to do is just, before I lift it up, is just attach a little bit of glue here and there, just at the end pieces. Just do a little bit here, like that. So just press very lightly here. And then you take and get rid of it, Toby. Oops, I'll just come out and place that. If you bring a knife, sorry, went out a bit there. Bring a knife just to lift it up, then use your hands. Like so. I haven't got one of my tools missing. Sorry, not prepared. I have a tool missing that I use.
Mum, how do you normally avoid getting fingerprints and cracks in your fondant?
I'd be very gentle. If you press down too much when you're working on a cake, that's when you're going to get your fingerprints, so therefore it's going to take a bit longer to get rid of them. So and I always tend to try and use some tools as well, like, you know, the small palette knives. This is the tiny one, or this is called a marzipan knife. So, sorry.
Doesn't wearing gloves help with that?
No, not at all. It's just I think the experience has taught me not to press down too much on the cake, especially, you know, when I'm icing anything. So as you can see here, we've started to apply them. So all I need to do is make sure that these, and you can see I've turned the knife the other way, the blunt side up, or down should I say, and then just gently push in, like so. And then you can push in at the top. Now it doesn't matter too much here, if like what Toby's just asked me about fingerprints, because this is going to be hiding in a minute. So that's just making sure that it's attached to the top part of the cake. And then if you find that it isn't straight or anything, all you need to do is you can just take it underneath. And it doesn't matter if it's not perfectly straight. Let's grab another bit here. Again. Get rid of that. Just put a little bit of glue here for the next piece. So we're going to do exactly the same as what we did before, taking the palette knife underneath, but this bit at the end here needs to be folded under, so that you're creating that nice fold to begin with. And just take your palette knife, you can see I'm going from the top and underneath, just gently holding your fingers, keeping this in place. You don't be pressing too hard, because that's when you will be doing the dents on there. And then just bring your palette knife up, and you bring the paste to you. You don't stretch it, because that's when you will get any indentations on it. Just bring it over slightly, and then that can be a little one like so. That up. Oops. And that's got rid of that. Oops, a bit of paste there. So tuck it in, and just come down just that little bit more. Tucking it in like that. So I'm not too worried about that, because that bit will get covered when, and then just press along the top like so. So you know itself. So all I'm going to do is there's a little bit here. So if you could just imagine that we have gone all the way round. Oh, that's a bit wonky.
Mum, is that cake upside down, or are you doing it?
No, this is a normal way. Just grab myself another bit of that.
And also, how many strips do you think you need for an 8-inch cake?
Oh, an 8-inch cake. No, this is an 8-inch one here, and I've got one. You're probably going to need about 6 strips. There, which was the beginning of it, as you can see. Not very straight, is it? Take that bit over. So, making sure the bottom is attached nicely, and then the top like that. So that's how you would cover your join to begin with, so that we had it flat. So I always have it flat so that you can put the place of the fold over it, so that you wouldn't be able to see there where I started on the cake. So all you need to do then is just to trim it. Again, it's always from the outside in. Sorry, I don't know what happened there, so I don't know whether the internet, we've had problems with the internet all week. So what we tend to do on this top bit here, just to finish it off, is just grab a bit of your paste again, and then we need to go this way a bit, so you can see. cut a couple of these. And this is a ribbon cutter. Sorry, what's going on here? Right, you can see here, it's the same thing what we were doing before with the ribbon part. So just take it over one way and take it back again. I don't know what I've done with my little palette knife. You see that? Oh, here it is. So what you're doing is you're kind of making tiny little bows when you see it come on. So over one way and then the other way. I'm really sorry about that cutting off earlier, or just a while ago. Need to get that one over just a wee bit more. Maybe because I'm too long doing the live video. And just create those like that. Just press down just a little bit, not too much. And just need a little bit of glue on the top. And then just lift these up with your knife, as you can probably see. It's not all going to plan now, which is great. And then just place it on the top of your cake. Just if I can get it so you can see here. There you go, look. So it just goes over the edge just a tiny bit. That's what I say, I'm not too worried about the top of the cake when you start to do it. Like that. And then just get your tool. And just very gently, you see where you've got in the middle here, all I do is just push it down a little bit. So you can see it's kind of, as it's pushing it down, it's also lifting the side bit up as well. If I go that way, you might see it a bit more. Like that. So hopefully, and if you find it's not, you need to push it out a little bit more. So that is how I finish off this effect.